everyone, and thank you so much for being here for the podcast Still Standing. This is the podcast where I interview fascinating people who have overcome extraordinary circumstances, challenges, and obstacles, and come out on the other side, not just surviving, but thriving. And my name is Shannon Torrence. I am very happy today to have with me Dr. Nima Rahmany.
Mm.
I'm going to read. Hello, Dr. Nima. Thank you so much for
Hello.
being here with
Good to be
me.
here,
It's
Shannon.
wonderful to have you here. We have a lot to talk about, and I will tell the listeners why. So, Dr. Nima is a renowned expert in helping individuals and organizations transform their emotional health and resolve stress-related patterns. With his unique approach combining chiropractic care, somatic healing, and mindfulness, Dr. Nima specializes in guiding people to heal unresolved emotional trauma and create deeper connections in their relationships. One of the things that really interested me about Dr. Nima is that he also specializes in attachment theory, which is something that I, at this point, have a PhD degree in from the University of TikTok and Instagram. So,
Internet
and as a
degree on attachment stuff. Yeah,
and as
beautiful.
a longtime recovering sex and love addict, this is right up my alley. So,
Mm.
Dr. Nima, I would thank you so much for being here. I would love to
So glad to be
know.
here. Yeah.
I am too. I would love for you to share with us whatever you're comfortable sharing
Oh, yeah.
about your background. How did you get to this place? And listen, the story can be as long as you want it to be, because I know that
Well,
these stories
yeah,
can, it's
so
your whole life.
interesting. I love it. I love your style. You have a great voice. You should do radio. You should do voice stuff. You're fantastic. The intro itself actually inspires me, and what this whole podcast is about inspires me to kind of share in such a way where maybe you can see yourself in it. You know, been a chiropractor for 20 years. I'm now retired, by the way. So I'm not actively practicing chiropractic anymore. It's really important distinction to share, because somewhere along the lines through my practice, I really discovered that patients that were coming in to see me were really dealing with stress related disorders. When you get to know them, you ask them, how long have you been dealing with this health issue for? They say 5 years. And then you ask them, what was happening 5 years ago? There was some sort of a relational rupture. There was a divorce, a breakup, a grief loss, some sort of thing. From 15, 20 years being a chiropractor, you realize the fuckery that happens to the nervous system when our attachment wounds get activated, right? So it sends a chain of events, mental issues, physical issues, anxieties. I just spoke with a client today, irritable bowel, right? Because she was trying to decide. She was just going through an infidelity in her marriage. She's going to visit her friends in California who are sorority sisters. She was like, should I tell them or should I not? And I had her sit in her body and go, like, imagine not telling them. And I sat there, imagine spending the week with them and never saying anything about it because they're like her sisters. And then all of a sudden she goes, ooh, I just got a knot in my stomach. Right. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And she's like, well, there's this part that really needs to be seen. Right. And because she's so used to suppressing it and pushing it down, it manifests as physical symptoms. She also happens to have irritable bowel. Right. And it's like these associations I started to see in my chiropractic practice. I was like, that along the lines of me going through a divorce and a series of failed relationships later to try to understand my situation. How do I keep getting into these same freaking patterns in these relationships where I'm the avoidant? I partner up with somebody who is anxiously attached and who just is super duper obsessed, and I really love it in the beginning, and then it becomes overwhelming and I'm like, God damn it, I need my fucking space. And then it causes this push and pull dynamic, and then I just got to leave, and then another broken heart, and then I start the cycle again. I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I go from that to one divorce and several failed relationships Meanwhile, having this chiropractic practice, and then I meet this one person, and I had no idea what codependency was. I didn't know what love addiction was, but she was it. She was a love addict, and also she was a sex worker. So imagine there is a sex worker who super duper, like my sexual shadows were very, very intrigued by this. And she was really good in the work, in the personal development work. She found me on YouTube and she was like, what have you done with John DeMartini's work? Because we were both students of John DeMartini. And I said, well, you have to experience it. So she invites me to her cafe. She has a gluten-free kind of like food sensitivity cafe. She also had food sensitivities in a same-sex relationship. And I had gone through several failed relationships of the same pattern. And then I meet her. And long story short, she leaves her gluten-free cafe, closes that down, and she's still running her sex working business. She's now a madam running, an online agency for sex workers, like a madam. And she sees my work. I take her through the process, and her food sensitivities cleared with just one session. And now here we are, deciding that we both have this deep love for the personal development work. We just have an affinity towards sex and sexuality. She was in a same-sex marriage at the time. I was in another relationship. And then we decide, as we partner up with the business side, the sex begins. And it became super duper, intoxicating. On the other side of a toxic relationship is the intoxicatingness of it. And so slowly our relationship built because it was founded on a co-rescuing operation. Whereas I was feeling like she was rescuing me from my low self-worth so that I can move from chiropractic to teaching people this methodology called the overview method to help release disempowering stories from your past so that you can heal. And she was rescuing me so that I could kind of move on. And she was managing my business while I was rescuing her from her life, from her relationship, from her health issues. I was going to help her regulate her emotions. She had a big issue with that. And so we started this shared fantasy, which is how trauma bonds begin. A shared fantasy where we're both going to rescue one another. And there's a covert agreement that, in exchange for her helping me with that, I was going to help her by giving her some sort of financial or relational security, and maybe even helping her regulate her kind of emotions that were all over the place. So she's got some challenges with regulation and emotions and health. And here is this Dr. Nima, who we could kind of combine forces with, and thus began our new adventure. I leave chiropractic and sell my practice. She leaves her thing, and we start combining forces and traveling the world and changing lives. And the sex was kind of like the driving force behind it. So I never was going to marry this woman, and in my heart, and she was secretly hoping for that outcome, right? A love addict and me, the avoidant. We slowly began this push and pull dynamic where she wanted some sort of a guarantee, and which I couldn't provide her. And slowly, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know what codependency was. I didn't know what love addiction was. She had already done CODA. She had already done all that. And then it would just appear that every time of the month, shit would just get crazy and volatile, like to a degree that I've never had before. And I'm embarrassed to say that a few times in these 4 years, a handful of times, a few, things would get physical with a little push here, a little, like an accidental push and that kind of thing where it was like, oh my gosh, like what did we just do? And we would recover from it. But it was March 11th, 2018, the night that I will never forget, where an argument after a weekend event just escalated and kept going. And I just wanted space. And I'm just so normalized in my life with a mother who did not respect my boundaries. So I didn't know that the thing to do was just to leave the situation, and I would just stay and I would fawn and fawn and fawn and people please and just not set the boundary. And finally, what was said just caused me to snap, and these hands that are normally used to heal reached out and slapped her in anger. And it was like a wake up call. I was like, what the fuck just happened? How did I get here? I wanted to find out, number one, how did I get here? How did this relational dynamic happen? Number two, can I break the cycle? Can I make sure that this never happens again? And if I can do one and two, can I do number three, which is to have a healthy, secure relationship? And if I can do all three, then it's my dharma, my dharma, my dharma is to bring this karma out. My dharma became my karma, or my karma became my dharma, excuse me. My situation, my mess became my message, which is how to break free from a trauma bond, how to heal from codependency, how to go from insecure attachment to secure love. And so that was the wake up call that sent us into this journey to understanding, what happened. We both did anger management. We were trying to figure out, is this going to work? Is it not? And in that time, all of a sudden, out of guilt, people found out about it because I was running a community. She turns around. I said, okay, so what do you need to feel safe? So we started doing therapy. She says, I need money, because we had been together 4 years. And now it was like all this guilt and shame. What do I do? We need to do therapy. We need to work this out so that we can then never repeat this. I want money and some acknowledgement for all the work that I did that you didn't pay me enough for. It's like, wait, what? I was paying you. Now you want all of this extra money. What? Huh? And I want you to declare that we are a marriage. We are a common law. And I'm just sitting there going, wait, what's going on here? Like, why? Like, why are you making all of these demands? And so what do I get in exchange? Well, in exchange, I won't file a police report. And so I'm like, oh shit. So if I don't submit to these demands, then my entire career is ruined, because I just left my chiropractic practice to do this. And this early on, it's like she's got my balls in her hands. And now I'm in this situation where if I don't comply, then I'm going to lose everything. And I've already given up everything to do this. What the fuck did I get myself into? So March of 2018 on, 2018 was probably the worst year of my life, because I knew that this relationship wasn't healthy. But I thought, if I left, she's going to destroy me. And so this is the concept where the love addict, in so extreme, maybe even some personality disorder stuff going on here, it was using this victimhood, because it was all knee deep in the whole Me Too thing, Me Too kind of environment. How am I, which I look like the perfect, ideal perpetrator. Like, look at me. I am the perfect person to use. I'm a doctor. I had built up a good reputation. And now here I am. It was kind of like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It's like, what do you do in that situation? And I realized that at that time, all of my personal development work that I'd used, this mindset work to help overcome challenges, were not working. My nervous system was so dysregulated. I couldn't sleep at night. I was constant anxiety. I was getting panic attacks because I felt trapped. I was like, if I go this way, I lose my entire life because of reputational damage. And if I stay with her, I'm actually like complying and staying and being kind of, what's the word? Coerced into a relationship I didn't want to be, because she was terrified of abandonment. And if I were to leave her, I was like, what is her fear of abandonment going to do? There's a lot of people I discovered stay in unhealthy relationships, not because they want to, but it's because they're afraid of what's going to happen. if they do. In many cases, in women, they'll stay because they're afraid of the repercussions. There's physical violence or some sort of thing. With men, they stay because of reputational violence, right? So it's the same thing. You use what, and so here I am in the midst of it, and we're at the stage where I can't tell my story because who's going to believe me? You know, who's going to believe my side of it? Men are the perpetrators and women are the innocent victims. And so there's no nuance in this conversation. It was just black and white. And she knew that. And I knew that. And I was like, what the fuck? And I felt paralyzed. And what's called a dorsal vagal shutdown is when you go into a freeze response and your nervous system is like dissociated. And I did never experience that. And so what I did was I just said, all right, I'm going to work on this stuff. And I started paying her. And I just thought, okay, I just got to heal this. I can't live like this. I stopped working. I felt like a complete fraud because how could somebody who claims to heal other people, you know, slap his girlfriend, even though I can make a case for why. And, you know, I'm not, this is nobody's fault, nobody blame, but take full ownership and accountability. What do I do? So I do the inner work and I really discover polyvagal theory, somatic experiencing, shadow work. I realized that I had gotten myself into this situation because I was trying to fill a void of importance and significance through this identity, through this character of Dr. Nima that I was creating, right? So as I was going through the identity crisis of leaving my practice, I was replacing it with this, you know, great speaker who could entertain and had an amazing methodology and did rap songs and salsa dance and could get that validation that way. And I realized that that was all a character that I was creating so that I could feel important and then have someone, you know, with, you know, the validation, all the sex that I wanted, the way that I wanted, and just, it was just, I was a perfect storm of this shared fantasy. She wanted the power couple dynamic. I just wanted to get out there and teach. I didn't care if it was with her or not. It was just really convenient. And so we were using one another, right? As we do when we are completely devoid of any worth or self-validation. We look for it on the outside. So the whole concept of becoming trigger proof was born. I leave that relationship. Finally, I kind of like pulling away slowly. And when she kind of saw the writing on the wall, she went no contact. And then I thought, oh my gosh, are we done? This is great. Oh, wow, I'm free of this. And I move on and I meet my amazing wife. We got married in April of 2020. And we had our son, Dominic, in September of 2020. And a week after he was born, I was arrested. Turns out she did file that police report. And then I get a trial notice for family law. So she filed that police report. I was arrested for assault. And then I was also given notice of family claim. So taken to court for my family assets. So to make a long story short, I pled guilty because, you know, I mean, I slapped her. I did do it. And so I did all of this work for 2.5 years, left the relationship, got married, had a kid, and finally, you know, she decided maybe a week or two after I announced that I was getting married and having a kid, that she would file the police report. I don't know why that was back then, but she went ahead and did that. And I went through the process. 18 months later, I went and pled guilty, and the judge found and listened to my case and saw the evidence that I had done all of this work 2 years prior to her filing a police report. Normally, in these types of situations, the person, you know, gets arrested and then has to go begrudgingly go and do all of this healing work. And so my lawyer and the judge as well said, I've never seen a case like this with somebody in your situation with such insight who went and did their own healing work 2 years prior to any police report being filed. So here I am. I get a conditional discharge, moving on, and then I went into a family trial where she was claiming that we were married and that she's entitled to my assets. Long story short, I won that as well. And my son is now 5 years old. My wife and I have been together for 5 years. And the concept of becoming trigger proof, that no matter how much cognitive knowledge, how much personal development work that you've done, if you don't master how to govern yourself in the moment you get triggered, you could basically do something and lose everything. And I'm living proof. And becoming trigger proof really is about expanding that space between stimulus and response and learning exactly what to do so that you can respond from an adult place rather than from the child that's trying to get their needs met through this other person. How's that for a backstory?
It's really more common than I'm sure most people want to admit or are aware of, because it is there's so much shame around not just trauma, abuse, obviously, and addiction, etc. And I really thank you for your vulnerability in sharing all of that, and owning your part
Mm,
and taking responsibility and
yeah.
turning this into something where you can help other people do the same, because none of us are perfect. And of course,
Yep.
I know you are not condoning violence of any kind. I know
Absolutely not.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And like you said, it all comes down to, why were you two attracted to each other?
Mm.
And that's where we get to the core beliefs.
Yeah. The
I'm
beliefs,
sure
that the
yeah,
stories of what who we believe that what we believe that we deserve,
yes,
and so why was this the perfect, why was she the perfect partner, why was I the perfect person for a person like that at the time, right? And it's not you're right, it's shame that stops us from looking at ourselves, because the first stage of all of this healing is actually alchemizing your shame. You need to actually feel the shame. It's the avoidance of the shame that keeps us separate from actually healing, because shame is awful. It's disgusting. It's a horrible feeling that we would all rather avoid. So, part of the work is to expose these parts of ourselves. And the more that I can share that, it hopefully will unshame other people so that they can go and find the right guidance and the right community and support to break that cycle that didn't start with them.
exactly. And obviously, I don't know her and don't want to diagnose, but it does sound like that's some cluster B personality disorder.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Um,
Undiagnosed.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty clear, and that alone comes from trauma. So I say that with the utmost
She
compassion,
had a lot. Yeah.
that we're formed by our experiences and to some degree our neurological DNA, our
Yeah.
biology.
I
And
believe,
yeah.
you go ahead, finish what you were sharing, because this is
Oh
a
no, I
really
would.
great segue into this point.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that intimate relationships specifically are where we become mirrors for each other, and
Yeah,
that's where all of our stuff comes up. So please
totally.
continue what you were saying.
Yeah, and the allure. I mean, we talk about the cluster B personality. We have the narcissistic traits on one side, and then borderline personality on the other. And there's a lot of overlap. But I had to really look at and see why these energies are so beautifully magnetized to one another, right? And I believe that we all have a little bit of a spectrum of all of it. We all have the joke that I have in my communities. We all have a little narcissism in us, except me, of course, because I'm perfect. Um,
I see what you
but
did
we
there.
all have it, and it's really Robert Greene says it's really our responsibility. It's like to really own how much we're operating unconsciously with narcissism, right? Not as a diagnosis per se. Of course, there are people that way, but it's kind of like a spectrum where it's kind of a behavior, narcissistic, right? And so it's this desire to be externally validated. It's this I'm not seen, right? And they have the same wound, the narcissist and the borderline, this wound of I see you, and it's like this. We strike a deal with one another where it's like, look, you, the love addict slash codependent slash borderline, it's all kind of like a spectrum. felt unseen, doesn't love themselves. And the narcissist, also not seen, creates this solution that I'm going to become this grandiose figure, and I'm going to love you the way that your mother didn't, by love bombing the shit out of you. And the other side is sex bombing, right? And just completely pedestalizing each other so that we can feel what we've never felt before, which is self-love. In other words, I'm going to love, I'm going to finally love myself through your gaze. And it's a co-pedestalizing one another. And as you dive deep in the relationship, within about 6 months to a year, which me and my ex were right on cue, that's when there is an event. There's a crisis of disillusionment where that pedestal, they're just off the pedestal, and that love bombing, all of a sudden there's an abrupt transition between the love bombing phase and the devaluing and the discarding phase. And that abrupt transition between love bombing and devaluing is like giving an addict, taking away their drug, and they just become this addict looking for their next hit of validation, right? And that's where they become kind of like with intermittent reinforcement, this push and pull dynamic really continues, going through devaluing, discarding, love bombing, devaluing, discarding, which really parallels the cycle of abuse. And you have this twisted dance between two wounded souls that are trying to act out what was incomplete in their childhood. I lived it. It was painful. It was, what was most surprising to me was how difficult it was to break free. Because when you're in that devaluing and discarding, you're so alone. You're dealing with the grief of your own reality. The fact that you're a hollow core without this validation outside of you. The reason why we stay connected to these types of relationships and we consent to them for so long, the reason why is because it's better than the alternative, which is to sit in your silence and be with your own shitty thoughts about yourself. Right? So what causes us to stay longer is like, why did I stay? Why didn't I leave? Well, because staying was better than the alternative, which was to be in solitude with the own unhealthy thoughts in your own mind. And so I realized that that was my biggest bottleneck. And so I started doing the difficult work in expanding my capacity to really learn how to love all the parts of myself that I'd been running away from using relationship. So it's a really powerful practice, and I've dedicated my life to helping people break free so that their homes can feel like a sanctuary, not a battlefield.
I oh man, that feeling just when you talked about it, what we call in sex and love addiction withdrawal from a person. I was in a meeting once, a 12-step meeting, and a heroin addict shared that he had gotten clean from heroin and that withdrawal from love addiction was 10 times more painful because that's a person and it's something that we actually like food, for someone who's has eating disorders, we need to eat.
Yes.
We need to intimacy, we need connection.
Yeah.
So
It's painful.
the oh my God. I
And there's
yeah,
another reason why it's painful. It's because it's not about the person.
yeah.
It's about the parent that they represent. So it goes way deeper than the person. It's actually a repetition of the pain of losing that connection and attachment with mom or dad. So it's primal. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I was the love addict. I was the always with the unavailable person. And I'm not saying that's even healed yet. My who I'm attracted to hasn't changed. It's how I love myself, how I can
Correct.
soothe myself, how I
Still have
have
those parts in you.
yep, and I love my life and I have a full life and so I don't spin out and spiral. But I did say to a partner, the reason that I might not show it because my thing is stuff it, don't show it, act like you don't care. So I'm not going to be the attacker. I'm going to be the freeze in the fight, flight, or freeze.
You're the
Is
freeze and fawner.
I'm the freeze and the fawner.
Yeah.
and I'm a people pleaser, which I've worked on a lot. It's also because when we were before we were in civilized society, or civilized isn't the word, but we were in herds, we were in packs.
Mm,
Animals are in packs. So if we travel in a pack so that we are protected from predators. Well, if I mate with you and you also get me pregnant and we have offspring and you jet, so now we're oxytocin bonded, and then I am literally at the mercy of predators. I literally could die. So before I had coping tools, the feeling was I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I'm going to
I'm gonna
die.
die. I want to die. Yeah, or
over
I'm going to
over
die.
losers, like over
Yeah.
guys that it's not about the person.
Huge compassion towards that. That's painful, right? It's like a primitive rupture of attachment with yourself, is really what it is. And so it looks like, a breakup with them, but the pain comes from the rupture from yourself, the I'm not worthy that
Yeah.
comes up. So when the breakup happens, that's a breakup, that's painful, but that's not as painful as the meaning that you're making out of it, which is I'm alone and I'm unworthy. And that self rupture from a part of you that deems you as unworthy is where the like unbearable pain comes from, which is good news, because if you could decide to become trigger proof and elegantly boundaried, you increase your capacity for those emotions and those parts of you, and they're still there, but you relate to them differently. Does that make sense? So you'll still
Completely.
have it. It doesn't go away. Your relationship with those parts of you is what changes, and that's what brings your confidence and your resilience, your adaptability. That's what causes it to shift.
Yes, and that's what I'm going to ask you about right now. Is for me, the answer lay in 12 step. For me, the reason was there is a formula, and the reason why it works. There's taking your inventory,
Taking
finding your and
responsibility.
taking responsibility, finding your triggers, being of service to other people, not even in grand ways, just getting outside of yourself so you're not so self-focused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, showing up, showing up for yourself, showing up,
Just showing up.
self-care,
Yeah.
finding the things that root you in yourself. And in my case, spirituality, not everybody has to, that's not something that's necessary, although it's for me has been immense. So I'd love to hear more about your strategy for
Yeah.
becoming trigger proof and how you work with your clients.
Yeah. Well, it's really like healing is a spiritual journey. We don't have to, I don't, I don't, I've given up trying to tiptoe around it. It's a spiritual journey. And what spirituality is not about what you believe, but it's a state of consciousness. And essentially, it's a decision to take on a different identity, right? It's to take on a different identity. And here's what I mean by that. It's like, okay, like when you wake up in the morning, um, you know, do you have to like you seem like somebody who identifies as someone who's hygienic, correct?
Correct.
So it's not like you have to put on your to-do list, take a shower, brush your teeth. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem that way. Why? Because it's baked into who you are. And our job then becomes to shift identities to somebody who values themselves, sees the divinity within them, that they're not, that there's God within them. There's capital God, and then there's, that there's small g, that the creator is within us, and is learning how to tap into that creator that's within us, within all of us, that we share, that we all kind of share. And so let's start with, it's a spiritual journey, and it's a decision to look at, and I take people through this in my trigger proof experience, is to really look and identify, where did we get our identity from? Right? It was given to us. by parents that were unconscious, that were baked into a system of culture, religion, political, all this, that we were given this is good, this is bad, this part of you is good, this part of you is bad, and really learning how to find the self with the capital S that we abandoned so that we could then attach to our caregivers, because that means survival. So how's the journey is to first understand that in a face-off between attachment to our caregivers and expressing our authenticity, which are two needs that we have. We need attachment and we need to express our authentic self, that as a child that we had to choose attachment over authenticity. And that's what led to this wake-up call, whatever that wake-up call looks like for you. And that's part of the dance of this hero's journey, is that we are led to this work by a wake-up call. Everybody listening is talking about a wake-up call. So it could be sex love addiction, could be a divorce, could be a breakup, could be a diagnosis of a health disorder. Whatever it is, our work is to help us identify how we got here. And how everybody gets here is that we ticked off all the boxes that we were kind of groomed into, that we should, based on the religion, the culture, the identities that we were given. And our work is to find out, well, who is that authentic Shannon? Who is that authentic Nima underneath the character that he created, so that he could maintain validation, approval, attachment with his caregivers. And it's really the emergence and individuation. The journey is really about individuation and finding out through these somatic practices, through the cognitive work, who is Nima, what are his true values, and slowly starting to align his day-to-day actions exactly in accordance with his authentic self, rather than this reactive false self that he created in order to fit in. And this is midlife crisis, this is relational crisis, you know, this is the journey of the examined life, living an examined life. And so the 12 steps are what many people, when you're at rock bottom, you start there, whether it's Narcotics Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, love addiction, codependency, whatever. It's all the same wake-up call, is that I, Nima Rahmany, Shannon Torrence, have developed an identity where my entire sense of value was externally dictated. And my work now, which I call becoming trigger-proof and elegantly boundaried, is really about learning how to rewire that conditioning so that I can then be internally oriented, internally focused, and then start to examine every relationship based on, okay, is this a mutual relationship, or is this relationship only alive if I'm abandoning myself so that I can maintain connection? And so it's really difficult, because you start to realize, as you stop fawning, as you go into becoming untriggered and unfawning, you start to realize that, holy shit, these relationships, if I'm not abandoning myself, there's no connection. And you start to realize, oh my God, it's a very lonely process, because you realize that almost every attachment and connection is based on you being your false self, because everything that you've experienced has been your false self. People, I've been such a people pleaser all my life that I don't really know who the fuck I really am. And it's like, I know, get in line, sister. We're all in that same boat. So that's why I created the Cycle Breakers Academy, is because I want people beyond, who've gone through the 12 step. If you're at the 12 step level, then you're at rock bottom. Start with 12 step. This is for people who've done the 12 step at least a few years, and they're ready to stop identifying as an addict. They're ready to stop making that their identity, as a survivor or an addict, and say, oh, that was an important part of my journey, but I don't want to identify as that. I want to create a new identity that's not a prisoner or a powerless being against this big bad monster called an addiction. I'm ready to break free from that identity. So this isn't for those, there's people who are in that. The people who come to me have already gone through several years of 12 step, and they're ready to go, you know what? These meetings where everybody is talking about it and it's really been great. Woe is me. But I'm realizing I'm starting to develop a codependency with this group of people, and it's just transferred one addiction to another. And so I'm ready to really learn how to stand on my own and become a leader. And one lady who was a sponsor in NA, and she started working with me, and just it was so much resistance in doing the work because she was so entrenched in the 12 step that she was sponsoring all these people, and she felt obligated, and to come into my program was going to have to abandon these people. And so it was a moment where she was just exhausted. She would fawning, people pleasing, and she was just exhausted and drained, and she was like, I just can't do that anymore. I'm tired of rescuing people. Right? That became a rescuing type of operation. And so she decided, all right, I'm going to just focus on deepening my own healing instead of just being there to sponsor others. And so she just realized after a few months that, oh my gosh, like all of these relationships, they were only there if I was giving up myself and abandoning myself. She was grieving the fact that many of her relationships were only there under the framework of being abandoning herself. So she's now healing that. She's now recovered in a beautiful way. Her children are now speaking. She's on speaking terms with her kids. She wasn't they weren't speaking to her before we began. So as she went into this healing journey, she let go of a codependent relationship. She breaking free from all these duties of sponsoring people, just focusing on filling her own cup, which she had to really, there's a lot of guilt there, right? She's like, oh my God, I'm such a bad person. To choose yourself feels like guilt. So she's expanding her capacity for guilt and having truthful, authentic connections, and her health is better. Her relationship with her kids are better. And she's trusting herself. She's really learning to trust herself.
Yeah, that's so much in there I relate with completely. And I highly, highly recommend 12 step for people that don't even know where to begin.
A
And I've
hundred
seen people get
percent.
addicted to it.
100%.
And also I have gone through it, and I really feel like my attachment style now is I went from I now realize I was severely avoidant in high school. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know but I would sort of love bomb and then get attached and then get smothered and then ghost until I was in my 20s. And then I became the chaser. Then I became the severely anxious. Now I'm seeing it all like, oh my God, I now see what I was, because now I'm seeing it in my relationships where I'm like, now they're the role that I was in high school. But so I've healed to the point where, like I said, I love my life. I have peace. I love myself. I like myself. I'm in a place happier than I've ever been. And yet now I identify more as secure slash avoidant now. In
Everybody's
yeah,
secure when they're single.
but I feel like I've gotten so good at being alone that I've now become sort of the avoidant where I'm I'm now have that kind of personality. It's sort of like the oppressed become the oppressor. And so now I notice in myself that I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't need anybody. I'm fine. And so while I am grateful, not even while 12 step changed my life.
Of
I
course.
healed. I mean, really like healed. It was either that or I was going to end my life.
Yeah, I believe you.
I was didn't want to be here over and over and over. The pain was so intense. I have
Yeah,
not felt that way in 15 years. Like I don't
beautiful. I'm so
more
happy for you.
maybe a little less, but just under. I haven't had that gut-wrenching, sickening, I can't breathe feeling. And I still I identify, as you say, but as sort of disorganized attachment still. So
Hmm.
I notice that I am more avoidant if someone's anxious,
Yep.
secure if I was with someone for 7.5 years and secure because he was secure. Then move to, you know, when someone's avoidant, I become anxious.
Yeah.
I won't show it. I'll feel it, but I won't spin out, but so I wanted to sort of ask about that, to speak on that in terms of sometimes people might say, well, am I really this attachment style? Isn't it normal to feel
Yeah,
avoidant with someone who's
I hear
sinking their
you.
claws into you? Isn't it normal to feel
Yeah.
secure if the other person is? Isn't it
Yeah.
normal to feel anxious when someone's pulling away?
Yeah.
So what I just wondered what you would say about.
Yeah. Am I anxious? Am I, avoidant? Because around this person, I'm more anxious. Around that person, I'm more avoidant. What am I? The truth is, every one of us have a part of us that seeks connection, right? And it's driven by the fear of abandonment that seeks connection, communion, and that's our anxious parts. All
Right.
right. Think about how old you feel when you seek connection, when you are afraid of abandonment. There is a part of us that always feels that way. For me, it's 2-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That fears abandonment. Usually it's the child inside of us. Then there's this other part on this side of us that felt like they were emotionally responsible, that felt like their emotions were dismissed or displaying them really didn't get them any positive results. So they were better off just siloing onto and becoming an island and dealing with it themselves. And this part of us is driven by the fear of being consumed
Yeah.
or engulfed, right? This part of us seeks space. So here's the problem. We all have this part of us that has a fear of abandonment and a part of us that has a fear of engulfment. So abandonment anxiety and engulfment anxiety are two parts of us, and that's just the reality of being human. And this part is a little bit of the teenager within us. So when I have these two parts and I haven't integrated them, because I'm not aware of them. I haven't felt into them. I haven't examined them. I haven't explored them. I haven't worked to understand them and see what makes them tick, where their fears come from, how they react to things. I haven't done that introspective work. I then will partner with another person who hasn't done their introspective work. And
Yep.
guess what? They have the same two parts to them: fear of abandonment, fear of engulfment. And these energies are perfect mirrors for one another. So when my fear of abandonment comes up and I seek communion and my energy becomes hypervigilant, our nervous systems are very um, contagious. So that energy comes at you, and all of a sudden, that overwhelming, like, powerful energy hits your nervous system, and your nervous system goes, whoa, 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 this reminds me of how I was responsible for my mom's emotions, for my dad's, for my brothers. I don't want to be responsible. I'm overwhelmed. And the overwhelm and the fear of engulfment takes over, and then that person starts to pull away, right? But then that same person who then meets another person who then feels this overwhelm and needs to pull away, that energy, it triggers the fear of abandonment, which causes them to want to commune and get reassurance and seek reassurance and regulation from the other person, which then, if they're not integrated and they don't know how to communicate, they're not trigger proof and they don't know how to be elegantly boundaried and communicate that and do the self work and then communicate, then they're going to get activated and they're going to run away further. So it's the tension of being human. And so we have all parts of us. You are not an attachment style, but the more extreme that you are, the more extreme on the other side, you magnetize like a freaking magnet. So you're
Yeah.
all of it.
What's the psychology behind? Of course, I know this with my PhD from YouTube. But what's the psychology between why anxiously attached people and avoidantly attached people are so drawn to each other? Um, because we talk about with avoidance, it's about not wanting to be engulfed, which I relate to so much because of childhood stuff. Maybe the father was
Mm-hmm.
absent and the mother relied on that child to be the man of the house and to take
Mm-hmm.
care of her. And so he had to take on the mother role.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you would think that someone who doesn't want to be engulfed would run as far as they could from someone who's clingy and I need you, I need you, I need you, and putting you on a pedestal. And why would someone who needs all that validation be attracted to somebody who's putting their hands up and saying, back
Great
up?
question. It's a great question. Why would they? Doesn't it complicate things? Don't you? It's like you're signing up for suffering. Well, there I have two answers. The first answer is we have these younger parts of us that are in pain are seeking to resolve this.
Mhm.
So the little girl that didn't get that validation from dad is secretly trying to complete this and to belong to dad. So she will seek out somebody who matches perfectly that wound so that she could finally win that person over and finally feel complete. But it never works because it becomes momentary and you have that connection and you have that sex and you feel like you belong. You feel like it's a drug because it's not about the other person. It's about the little girl that didn't get her needs met from dad finally getting that happen. And when that happens, there's this beautiful opening. And then, it's like this expansive opening with the avoidant that you just had, and you just won him over, and you just like you won dad over, and you just expand. And then what happens is the avoidant all of a sudden has feelings and sensations and is like, oh my God, I'm liking this person, or they like me, and now I'm going to be emotionally responsible for them. I'm going to become engulfed with all this emotional responsibility, just like when I was a kid. I'm getting the fuck out, and boom, I'm leaving. And why did they attract that? Is because they're trying to win over, for example, if we're using your case and they attract somebody like you, they couldn't make mom happy. They couldn't get the love from mom. They couldn't feel seen and heard and loved by mom. And the anxious attached is so attentive and wants so much connection, and the love is like motherly, almost like overwhelming. And so it's so alluring because now I can finally get seen and loved by the mother that I didn't have. And then the sex happens, and then the next morning you wake up and it's like, oh my God, now the responsibility is showing up, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. So it's so alluring because I get to finish this unfinished business with somebody who's exactly like the person that put that button into my soul, who installed the buttons. Does that make sense?
It's so textbook that it's amazing. And that's
Yeah.
why this is such a popular topic,
Yeah.
because so many, I mean, if you look at these avoidant attachment videos, there are like a million followers on each one. And
Yeah.
that's because so many of us, whether you're
Identify, yeah.
it's yeah.
The joke I have is, like, as I'm sharing this in my cycle breakers, I'm telling everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're telling my whole story. I'm like, I know I have a hidden camera in your home. I'm
I
watching the whole
know.
thing. I'm just reporting the whole thing, but it's just you though.
Right. It's literally like textbook.
Yeah.
It all plays out in this way. And so when you're working with your clients, what are some of the ways, obviously bringing these things to their attention is
Correct. That's the first step.
yeah.
You're not going to break the cycle overnight. This one woman actually came to my overview experience, and she was like, she's actually a trauma therapist in a very toxic relationship that she became the avoid. She was start off at anxious attached, became avoidant. She's like, she was a social worker and a trauma therapist. So she didn't do any somatic work. It was all here. And she's now left her whole family because the only boundaries to an avoidance don't really know how to do elegant boundaries. They
Mhm.
either are doormats and they don't trust themselves, so they avoid because they don't trust themselves to be able to just set a boundary. And because in my case, the way I could do that with my wife, I'm like, babe, I need to go away for a weekend and just go skiing. And she's like, okay, go have fun. Or I need to go for golf. You know what? I really need to go. I need some space to go golfing. She's like, okay, cool. Like, I recognize when I need space. I don't feel guilty anymore. Or I'm not, sometimes there's some guilt that's still there, but I don't let the guilt stop me from asking for what my needs are, right? Which is some space and to, you know, just, I love that solitude. I just love it, right? And so she didn't really know she was in that world. And she said, how long does it take to heal and avoid an attachment? I said, minimum of 6 months, where you're really working to do the practices and rewiring it about 3 times a week. Sorry, 3 hours a week.
Mm.
right? And she made this look like, huh? Like that's excessive. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if that's excessive, why haven't you, with your trauma therapy background, why haven't you actually embodied it? Right. And that's when she kind of took offense to that. I wasn't being her therapist. The way that I coach is I'm very direct. I hold a mirror up. I'm like, listen, if that's the case, and you think, how long does it take? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks to overcome an avoidant attachment? We are talking about a blueprint, a childhood wound that needs to be addressed moment to moment as a practice for how an awareness for how these sensations come up all the time. How many times do you notice that you need space, but you don't speak up, or you don't take the time to self-care? You don't have the practices to connect to that teenager that always felt like they were responsible, that always felt like they had to please everybody, that always felt like they lost themselves in another person. Or quite frankly, here's another reason why we're so drawn to him, is because deep down, every avoidant in their shadow has an anxious part of them that is so afraid of losing themselves that they go into avoidance so that they don't touch their anxious parts. And that is in your shadow. So whatever you have in your shadow, whatever these parts that you're repressing or denying within you, you attract. You attract the anxious person because you yourself are anxious. And in order for you to protect yourself, me as the avoidant, in order for me to protect myself from ever meeting and making contact with this disgustingly weak and vulnerable anxious part, how can I guarantee that they're not going to show up? By dating someone so fucking paralyzingly anxious that I never have to worry about being abandoned.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to choose somebody like that, because I'm so deathly afraid of my own anxious parts. I've shoved them into the basement because I'm so ashamed of them. They're so weak. They're so vulnerable. They were chastised when they were young. They were dismissed when they were young. They were told, "Shut up. You're too sensitive. Enough of the emotions already. Just fucking stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. You're too sensitive. You're too that." They are shoved in the corner and they hate that part. So guess what? They start dating and they attract someone exactly like the parts of them that they've repressed and denied. So now they get to see it and be irritated by the reflection in their of themselves. They don't realize it, right? So to heal this anxious attachment, to heal this avoidant attachment, takes so many stages. There takes a somatic awareness of, oh, I'm constricted, an awareness of the younger parts that have been activated, constantly noticing how often you abandon them, and then bring it back and integrate with them, and then have repair, right? And so this takes practice, and you can't do it in isolation. So no matter how much anxious attachment work that you do by yourself or with your therapist, all bets are off the second you start dating somebody, and within 6 months, these anxious wounds start to come up. So there's two phases of the work. There's the work solo to heal and recover from the fuckery that you just came through, and to wake up and to take ownership, accountability, not blame, because it's nobody's fault, to really take ownership of the parts of you that you've abandoned. That's the first step. And then the next step is the partner work, that even if all the personal development work you've done in isolation, when you get into relationship, what happens when you get triggered? How quickly can you integrate the fear of abandonment part of you, the fear of engulfment part of you, and how elegantly can you communicate your emotions in a way that's safe, that honors the other person's process, and then repair? So either way, this is a life. I said 6 months. It takes years to rewire this, and you need self-work and partner work so that you can go from the honeymoon phase to the power struggle phase to finally the mature love phase. And we can't put a timeline on it. And so to that person who claims she's a trauma therapist and she could resolve it in weeks, show me how you do it. And why haven't you done it already? Show me how you do it. And I'm willing to listen, because this work lives in my bones. And I went from avoidant to secure Not overnight. It's been 5 years in my marriage, and I still notice these parts coming up, and I'm repairing. And so I just keep getting more and more secure with myself through the rupture repair process. And you can't really put a timeline on it. But if you really are, depending on how severe you have it and how reactive you are, this person was so reactive and she went into defense mode and, you know, going into like, oh, I'm being gaslit type of thing. So there's a lot of deep work necessary in that. So it's going to take a lot longer than 6 months to recover. But if you can do it in a few weeks, I want to hear about it. I want to see what that work is like. So it's a process that's somatic, it's cognitive. And in my Cycle Breakers Academy, I literally walk people through the exact work that I went through, because this work isn't just an academic thing for me, it lives in my bones.
That was so well said also. I believe you're so right about one of the reasons avoidants are avoidant is because they don't know how to set boundaries or they don't feel comfortable setting boundaries. That has been true for me,
They
and I'm
weren't allowed
noticing
to
they
without
weren't allowed to.
punishment. Yeah.
And it's actually why I've hated trying dating sites because I automatically get the ick because I have difficulty saying I'm not interested.
So
And
you'll keep going and you'll say
yeah,
yes when your body says no. You
yep,
don't want to be seen as the bad guy. You don't want to be seen as rude. You want to be, and this is fawning, and then
yep.
sometimes in these dating situations where you don't want to say no, you end up going too far and you might even have sex. And then
I used to
after,
do that.
yeah,
I used to
and
do
then
that back in the day.
afterwards you feel violated.
Yes.
Right? But the thing is that it's not your fault, but
Oh.
it starts with the self betrayal and the self violation of not honoring when your body said no. But if you were a teen and you were groomed that way ever since you were a child, then it all makes sense that this is how it works.
Right. And now
It's
I've
nobody's fault.
practiced, yeah, I've now just practiced saying, "Hey, listen, I think you're lovely and I'm not feeling a romantic connection." Three men have said to me, I've taken it very poorly, and yet I felt nothing bad about it. All three of them said, "Have a nice life," or some variation
Yeah.
of "Take care." I don't, I hope you never block, 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 whatever. And
Narcissistic injury.
yeah, and I don't, and but I feel like, okay, I'm realizing that's what that was about is when
Yes.
somebody shows interest in me, I
Yeah.
immediately get the ick, and it's not fair to them because they're just putting themselves out there. I'm only getting the ick because I'm anticipating having to set a boundary. And that's what's making me deeply uncomfortable. Not that they did something wrong, but
Yeah.
that I
Totally.
am struggling with, oh, now I have to shake them and I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so that boundaries is one of the things, and self-care, that is part of self-care. Like you said, when you just need space to be able to tell your wife and to have a supportive partner who understands and say, I'm feeling, I need to articulate.
I just got to get out there and hit the golf
Yeah.
course for today. I
And I
just,
struggled with that in my
yeah.
last relationship, and I would just shut down. And he would say, "Where did you go?" And it would be, I'd just avoid him. I'd make plans with other people. I'd go in my room and meditate. I'd do yoga by myself. I'd always be busy
Mm.
to avoid what was actually the problem or having the
Yeah.
conflict of,
Yeah.
we've got some tension here, we've got some conflict here.
Yeah.
And so what you said earlier was, well, it's easy to be secure when you're single.
Yeah.
And that's sort
Exactly.
of what I've learned as well. And I love that you said that.
Totally. And the your next frontier, if you're open to refining this and getting to the next level, is expanding your capacity to have your partner displeased with you. That is the secret to secure attachment, because I can't tell you my truth if I feel that it's going to displease you. If I can't tell you my truth because I'm afraid of displeasing you, I'm setting us up for a horrible, insecure dynamic. Let me
That
say
would,
that again.
yeah,
If I withhold my truth because I'm afraid of displeasing you, then I'm setting our relationship up for a horribly insecure dynamic.
that was such a eureka moment.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's not about finding the right person. It's about expanding your capacity for somebody else to not like your boundary, right? It's like, listen, can I share how I'm feeling? Yeah, I'm feeling a little resistance. And the story I have is, that I don't have an interest in pursuing this, but I have a fear of letting you know about it because I'm afraid that that's going to be met with like I'm a bad person. So normally in my past, I would just not say anything or avoid or ghost. Can I get some help with this?
Mhm.
And
Naming the
this
discomfort.
naming the discomfort and just throwing your animal body under the bus and saying, this is what's happening in my system right now. And I would love to, normally I would just run away from this conversation, but I'm doing something different and I'd love your help with this, especially if you're the feminine, because this is part of feminine communication. Because now you expressing your discomfort becomes the boundary, because a healthy masculine man would be like, oh my God, I do not want you to feel uncomfortable. All right, you don't have to say anymore. I totally understand. Let's, hey, I totally get it. We'll take it easy, take your time, whatever. And then when he responds to you in that way, all of a sudden that ick is like, wait a second. I just shared a truth of mine and you just created safety for me to express my truth. Wow, maybe that was my avoidant part trying to avoid intimacy. And this is actually really a safe place to be. I just never had that experience before. And can we just, I'd like to explore this further. Can we keep going? Right? Because once you elegantly share your boundaries, which isn't get away, you're giving me the ick. It's like, this is what's coming up. This is the story. Feel this tightness in my chest. The old me would have so and so. The boundary has nothing to do with the other person. The boundary is, what am I experiencing right now? And I'm going to need your help with this. Can I get your help with this? Because the man that you end up with, who's a secure attachment with you, won't be connecting with you outside of all these icky experiences. Those will be integrated and part of the healing journey, that the relationship becomes a container for the two of you to heal that together. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to wait till I'm healed in the past tense and now I can get into a secure relationship. No, these avoidant parts and these anxious parts are going to come up. It's how am I meeting them and then communicating them and then asking for help, because the right guy will be like, all right, babe, your avoidant parts are coming up. I want you to know, take all the space you need. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, da 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 da. Text me when you're done. I'm good.
Yeah.
And when your anxious part's coming up, he's able to say, listen, I totally hear you. I can see that you want to talk about this. I don't have the bandwidth right now, but I'm going to so and so, and I'll be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So he's able to bridge that and able to co-regulate these parts of you, because you're not going to heal this shit independently. It got fucked up within relational dynamics, and it can only get healed through secure attachment. That's what my wife and I have been for one another, is she's helped me heal my avoidance and I've helped her heal her anxious attachments. And so over time, it just becomes stronger when you become trigger proof and elegantly boundaried.
That's such a perfect place to end. I think just the way you shared that and how beautiful the relationship that you have and that you've worked for, honestly, that you've done the work
I've
on
earned it.
yourself. You have earned it. And I mean, I could talk about this topic for 100 more hours. I just want to thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom. I can't wait to share this episode. I'm like, I really am. This is the stuff I'm fascinated by. I'm writing a book myself about my recovery
Amazing.
from sex and love addiction. It's a spiritual book as well, but so much of what we've talked about today is sort of in there. And like, how do we love ourselves? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
We could choose to love ourselves, but how? How do I feel it? And so I think so much of what you shared touched on it. And if you would like to work with Dr. Nima, which I know one day I will as well, it is drnima.com.
Yeah.
Nima. And is there anything else you'd like to share in terms of things that you're working on,
Yeah,
workshops? Yeah.
my team should be sending you, if you can reach out to them or they reach out to you, they should
Yeah.
be sending you the link for the attachment style quiz. The best place to start is to find out what your attachment style is. So I provided a link where you can really answer a few questions, examine what it is, and I show you some videos as to how that it could heal. And then there's always an invitation to dive deeper. If you really want to learn, I have this event called the overview experience, which now has been rebranded as the trigger proof experience, where I show you the methodology of what I just talked about today and how to integrate these shadows when they show up and then communicate it in a way where it causes rupture repair. It's essentially the mastery of rupture repair. And if you don't learn how to master rupture repair, then you're living in a fantasy world thinking that somebody's going to come in and create this secure relationship for you. No, you create it through the rupture repair process. So I really love teaching people how to do that.
Yes, and I this that reminds me of really the only way out is through, and I think so many of us just want to avoid feeling those uncomfortable feelings. So, we say, well, then I just won't do relationships. Never mind. I'm just not going to do it at all. And
Yeah,
it's not
I'll
avoiding
just
it.
get cats.
And I do have a cat. And, sometimes I think, nope, this is good. This is really good. And you're right. But we're here to love. That's my belief, is that we're here to
Yeah,
love
yeah.
and connect.
And it does feel like a better option. I don't blame people who are like, I'm done with relationships. Like it's too much of a hassle because they don't know that what's possible when you have two people who are dedicated to using the container of the relationship as a place to heal and grow. So we just want it to be easy. I didn't get here because it was easy. It was messy. It was challenging, but we all were fed these little blueprints that we're born worthy of love, but we were raised and conditioned to not live as though we are. And so it's our task to heal that. And that's why we're here. We're here to learn how to become better at love. And that's really what the work of becoming trigger proof is about.
That is so, so beautiful. Dr. Nima, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
This has been such a amazing experience, and I feel like we were connected for a reason. It's everything I've been studying, everything that's been on my mind, and I can tell you're excellent at what you do. So I just wish you continued success, and
You
that
too.
more people, thank you, that more people are able to help themselves heal by working with you. So thanks again.
Big love. Thank you so much.
Likewise.